All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of Chinese EVs.
Chinese EVs.
You got it.
It's quite the story.
It really is. And we've got a ton of information to sort through. Expert analysis, industry reports, firsthand accounts, even some of those spicy social media takes.
Oh, yeah.
So
I love those.
We are going to cover it all.
Yeah.
Our mission here today is to figure out how China went from, kind of being an automotive underdog to becoming a global EV superpower.
Yeah, underdog to superpower.
It is quite a transformation.
It's really something.
And who knows, maybe by the end of this, we'll all have a better idea of what our next car might be.
Right, exactly.
So, to kick things off, I think we have to go back in time a bit. Before the whole EV boom, Chinese car companies weren't exactly known for making top-tier vehicles.
Yeah, not exactly top tier, no.
I actually came across this story. It's kind of legendary in the industry.
Okay.
Apparently, Chinese car makers back then actually struggled to make a car door that closed properly.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
Can you imagine?
It really highlights the gap back then.
It does.
Between where they were and where the global leaders were.
Right, it's not exactly a selling point.
No, not really.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to catch up in the whole gas guzzler game, they saw EVs as a chance to completely leapfrog the competition.
Totally. They skipped a whole generation of technology.
It's pretty brilliant when you think about it.
It is. It is.
And they had the system in place, some people call it state capitalism,
right,
where the government basically throws its full weight behind any industry that it considers strategically important.
Yeah, they pick winners and then they go all in.
Exactly. And we've seen this play out with, the perfect example is Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
Their gigafactory in Shanghai, that thing was built at warp speed.
Warp speed, it was incredible.
But then you look at their factory in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
Delays, red tape, environmental concerns, you name it.
Totally different story.
It really shows you how differently things work over there.
Yeah, different priorities.
So let's talk about the heart of the EV revolution, the batteries.
Okay, the batteries.
I feel like China really understood the importance of batteries way before anybody else did.
Oh, absolutely. From the very beginning, they knew batteries were key.
And they weren't messing around.
No.
They rolled out all these policies to support their domestic battery industry.
Yeah, and it wasn't just, throwing money at it. They had a plan.
They did, and they had this one tactic it was pretty clever.
Oh, tell me about it.
They basically said to foreign EV makers, hey, if you want access to those sweet government subsidies, you got to use Chinese batteries.
Pretty smart.
It's like a win-win for them.
It is. It boosted their domestic production, and now they've got this massive advantage globally.
They basically control a huge chunk of the world's battery mineral supplies.
Yeah, something like 80% of the refining capacity for some of those key materials.
It's mind-blowing, and they've got the refining capacity to match.
Oh, yeah, they've got the whole supply chain locked down.
Okay, so all this talk about batteries, it's got me thinking about this company BYD.
BYD, yeah, they're a fascinating case.
They started out making batteries for, cell phones, right?
Right, cell phones, laptops, all sorts of electronics.
And then they made this huge pivot to EVs.
Yeah, talk about being ahead of the curve.
Seriously, that's some serious vision.
Absolutely, they saw the writing on the wall and adapted brilliantly.
It's remarkable. So tell me more about these LFP batteries that they're pushing.
Okay, so LFP stands for lithium iron phosphate.
Okay.
And these batteries, they're kind of a game changer.
I've heard they're cheaper and more durable than other lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah, exactly. And they're getting better all the time, performance-wise.
Wait, are these the ones that can charge in 10 minutes and get you, what was it, almost 400 miles of range?
Yes, 370 miles to be exact. It's incredible technology.
That's insane. It completely blows that whole cheap knockoff stereotype out of the water.
Yeah, that stereotype is so outdated.
It feels like they're innovating like crazy.
Oh, they are. And in some areas, they're actually surpassing Tesla.
Really?
Yeah, when it comes to things like range and charging speed.
I think it's safe to say that the days of Chinese EVs being seen as, cheap and low quality are over.
Yeah, that perception is definitely shifting.
Just look at the numbers. The average export price of Chinese EVs has been climbing steadily.
It's not all about bargain basement prices anymore.
Remember that Wuling Hongguang, that super cheap EV that was making headlines a few years back?
Oh yeah, the one that even had Japanese automakers scratching their heads.
That was just the beginning.
The tip of the iceberg.
Now you've got BYD shipping high-end models to Europe, going head-to-head with the luxury brands.
The whole new ballgame.
It's crazy, the variety.
Oh, the variety is mind-boggling.
We've got everything from that BYD Seagull.
The Seagull, yeah.
Which comes in at like, what, $11,500?
Unbelievably affordable.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got brands like Yang Wang with their supercar, the U9.
Yeah, the U9, that thing's a beast.
That thing looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
It does. It does.
It's wild. And the thing is, they're not just competing on price anymore.
No, not at all.
They're packing in all this high-tech stuff.
Oh, yeah. Seat ventilation, customizable engine sounds.
Customizable engine sounds.
Because why not AI-powered parking assistance?
It's like they're pulling out all the stops.
They're not holding back.
So, I mean, at this point, is there anything stopping a global EV takeover by China?
It's a good question. You know, the impact's already being felt around the world.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in Europe.
Eurocon.
Yeah, get this. The EU is now the biggest export market for Chinese EVs.
Whoa. Seriously. I would have thought those European car makers would be, like, freaking out about this.
Oh, let's just say they're not thrilled.
I bet.
There's definitely some tension, some pushback, you know.
So what's going on? Like, how are they reacting?
Well, for one thing, those lower tariffs in the EU have made Chinese EVs super appealing to buyers.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a problem for the European brands.
Right, and it's actually created this other problem. There's a shortage of car carrier ships.
A shortage of ships?
Yeah, because the demand is so high.
Wow, that's wild.
It is, and on top of that, the EU is actually launching an anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese EV makers.
Hold on, are we talking trade war territory here?
It's definitely a possibility.
Do you think tariffs will even be enough to slow them down?
You know, that's the big question.
It is.
Some experts think tariffs won't really be effective. The price difference is just too big.
Right.
And let's not forget, Chinese companies are masters of adaptation.
Oh yeah, they'll find a way.
They could even bypass tariffs by entering the U.S. market through Mexico.
Going south of the border.
Exactly. Imagine that irresistibly cheap EVs flooding the American market.
It'd be a total game changer.
It would shake things up for sure.
And in the meantime, you've got those European car makers sweating bullets.
Yeah, millions of jobs could be on the line as Chinese EVs gain market share.
This whole thing is like a slow-motion economic thriller.
It is high stakes, global implications, the whole 9 yards.
And right in the middle of it all is this question of, can the established players adapt fast enough?
Can they keep up?
I mean, they're investing heavily in EVs.
They are.
But are they moving quickly enough to survive in this new landscape?
Yeah, because EVs aren't just some niche market anymore.
They're the future of the whole industry.
The future is electric.
I mean, think about what happened to companies like Nokia and BlackBerry when smartphones took over.
Oh, right.
Are we going to see history repeat itself with traditional car companies?
It's a possibility if they don't embrace the EV revolution.
And what about Tesla? Can they really hold on to their crown with China breathing down their neck?
Even Elon Musk has sounded the alarm bells.
Really?
He's predicted that Chinese EV makers will demolish their rivals if there aren't any trade barriers.
If Elon's worried, then, things are about to get interesting.
Interesting and a whole lot more electric.
Definitely more electric. All right, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. What if Chinese EV makers become like the Apple of cars?
The Apple of cars.
Imagine a world where they're not just focused on the hardware, but they're building an entire ecosystem around their vehicles.
Interesting. So like software, connected services, maybe even the charging infrastructure.
Exactly. They could become the go-to for everything.
That's a bold vision.
It is. It is. It's like, remember when smartphones were these luxury items that only a few people could afford?
Right.
And then Chinese companies came in, made them affordable, accessible, and boom, everyone's got one.
Everyone's got one.
Could we be seeing the same thing happen with EVs?
It's definitely possible. We've already seen how aggressive they can be with pricing.
Yeah.
And that control they have over the battery supply chain, that gives them a huge advantage.
Speaking of aggressive tactics, let's go back to what's happening in Europe for a second.
Okay, Europe.
We talked about that EU anti-subsidy investigation. What's the latest on that?
Well, things are getting pretty tense.
I bet.
The EU is really worried about the impact all these Chinese EV imports are having on their own car industry.
Right.
They're actually accusing China of dumping.
Dumping?
Basically selling EVs below cost just to grab market share.
Wow. And I heard they're talking about some pretty hefty tariffs, like up to 45% on Chinese EVs.
Yeah, 45%. That's a big number.
But will those tariffs actually stick?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
There was a vote recently, and there was a lot of pushback, especially from countries like Germany.
Germany, why Germany?
Well, their auto industry is super intertwined with China.
Right. Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, they all have massive factories in China.
Exactly, they're worried about retaliation.
So if the EU goes ahead with these tariffs, those German car makers could end up getting caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for them.
It's like they're trying to walk this tightrope.
They want to protect their own industry, but they also don't want to mess up their economic relationship with China.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. And it feels like this whole thing could easily escalate into a full-blown trade war.
The potential is definitely there.
Some of the reports we read mention that China is already hitting back with tariffs on things like French brandy.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Not exactly sending a message of peace and harmony.
No, not really.
It just shows how high the stakes are.
It does, and it highlights how strategically important the auto industry is.
Yeah.
For countries like France and Germany, it's not just about the economics, it's about national pride, technological leadership jobs.
It's fascinating how Tesla is navigating this whole situation.
Yeah, Tesla's kind of playing both sides.
They are, aren't they?
They've benefited from that Chinese government support with their Shanghai Gigafactory.
Yeah.
But they're also an American company competing against these Chinese rivals.
Right, and they managed to secure a lower tariff rate from the EU.
Oh yeah, how did they pull that off?
By being super transparent about their subsidy levels.
Smart move.
They basically told the EU, hey, we're American, not Chinese.
Clever. Very clever.
It just shows how complex this whole global EV chess game really is.
It does. Everyone's trying to figure out their next move.
Okay, before we go any further, let's just take a step back for a second
All right.
and do a quick recap for our listeners.
Sounds good.
What are the biggest takeaways so far?
All right, so takeaway number one. China's rise in the EV market has been absolutely incredible.
It really has.
In just a few decades, they've gone from lagging behind to becoming a dominant force.
Dominant is right.
And this is due to a few key factors. Government backing focus on cost efficiency and their mastery of the battery supply chain.
And that mastery of the battery supply chain cannot be overstated?
No, it can't.
Okay, takeaway number two.
Number two, the global impact of this rise is undeniable.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're seeing trade tensions, accusations of unfair competition, and real anxiety about job losses.
Absolutely.
And this is really just the beginning.
The tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. Okay, what about number three?
Takeaway number three, the old guard is at a crossroads. The traditional auto industry.
Yeah, they're scrambling to catch up, but it's unclear if they can adapt quickly enough to survive.
It's a whole new world out there.
It is.
And EVs aren't just a sideshow anymore.
No, they're the main event.
Yeah.
All right, and last but certainly not least, takeaway number four.
The competition is fierce.
Oh yeah, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there.
Not just between Chinese and Western car makers.
Right.
But also among those Chinese companies themselves.
Yeah, BYD, NIO, XPeng, Liada, they're all battling it out.
All vying for that top spot.
It's a wild, wild west out there.
It is, and things are changing so fast.
It's an exciting time to be following this industry.
Absolutely. As we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some of the key trends shaping the future of Chinese EVs
Okay.
and discuss what this means for the global auto industry. So stay tuned.
I mean, are we about to see some of these big legacy car brands, go the way of the dinosaur?
It's a real possibility. The old guard, they're facing a serious challenge.
They are.
And it really all comes down to adaptation. Adaptation.
Can they pivot fast enough to stay in the game?
Yeah,
Time will tell,
it will.
but the clock is ticking.
So what's next for these Chinese EV makers?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
Do you think they can keep this momentum going?
Yeah, is this just a blip, or are we seeing like a fundamental shift?
Well, some analysts believe this is just the beginning.
Really?
They're predicting that Chinese car makers could become the Apple of cars.
The Apple of cars.
Yeah, think about it. Not just building cars, but creating a whole ecosystem.
Right, so they'd be the go-to for everything.
Everything. Software, connected services, charging infrastructure, the whole shebang.
Like a one-stop shop for all things EV.
Exactly.
I mean, they're already ahead of the curve in areas like in-car tech and AI assistants.
Oh yeah, those AI assistants are getting really impressive.
Have you tried out the one in the BYD Han?
The BYD Han, no, not yet.
It's supposed to be super sophisticated.
Really?
I even heard it tells jokes.
No way. Got to check that out.
Yeah, it's on my list.
It's amazing. The innovation in this space is just incredible.
It is. It's like every week there's some new breakthrough.
It's moving so fast.
It really does feel like the Wild West of tech, but with cars.
Yeah, the Wild West, but electrified.
But there's another piece of the puzzle we can't forget about.
Right, the geopolitics of it all.
Exactly. All that talk about trade wars, tariffs, national security concerns.
It's a big factor.
Could all that friction derail this Chinese EV train?
It's definitely a risk. We're already seeing some pushback.
Yeah, like that EU anti-subsidy investigation.
Exactly. And in the U.S., there's a lot of talk about protecting domestic manufacturing.
Yeah, reducing reliance on those Chinese supply chains.
Right, reshoring, they call it.
I mean, the Biden administration is putting billions into boosting American battery production.
They are. They're even offering tax credits to people who buy EVs made in North America.
But catching up to China's scale and expertise, that's not going to be easy.
It's a tough challenge, for sure.
And the longer it takes, the stronger that Chinese foothold becomes.
Exactly. And they're not just sitting around waiting.
No, they're constantly innovating, expanding, setting their sights on new markets.
They're playing the long game.
It's a race against time. But even if the US and Europe manage to ramp up their own EV production, there's another potential roadblock: the environmental impact.
The sustainability question.
All those batteries, mining the minerals, manufacturing, recycling.
It's a complex issue.
It is. There are environmental costs at every stage.
And we can't ignore those.
Our research showed that China's less stringent environmental regulations could give them a cost advantage.
Right. It's cheaper to pollute.
Which could become a major issue as consumers become more eco-conscious.
Absolutely. People are paying more attention to where their products come from.
They are, and how they're made.
It's a big shift.
So many factors at play. It's really tough to say how this will all shake out.
It is.
But I'm excited to see what happens.
Me too.
The competition, the innovation, the possibility of cleaner transportation. It's a fascinating time to be following this industry.
Absolutely. Before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with one last thought.
Okay, hit us with it.
What if all these geopolitical tensions actually force a decoupling of the global EV supply chain?
Decoupling.
Could we end up with a more regionalized auto industry?
So like different standards, different technologies, even different prices in different parts of the world.
Exactly.
That's a really interesting thought.
It is. It could lead to higher prices and slower EV adoption in some regions.
Right.
But it could also spark more localized innovation.
And create a less vulnerable supply chain.
It's a trade-off that countries and companies will have to weigh carefully.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but the future of the auto industry is at stake.
Well said. And on that note, I think we'll wrap things up for today.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the electrifying world of Chinese EVs.
It's been a pleasure.
The future is electric, and it's looking more and more Chinese.